Hi there. My name is Robin. I work at Senate Neighborhood Place as an outreach worker and a facilitator of parent education workshops and groups. And today I wanted to talk about anger in parenting because right now we are stuck at home, we're self-isolating, we're with our kids 24/7. Many people are working from home and things are challenging. Kids can't go out. We're all mushed together. Siblings are spending a lot more time together, and there's a lot of stress. So anger comes up a lot with any time when we're parenting. It's an emotion that we're not very comfortable talking about as a society, and it's one that's really, really important because it's something that we all deal with and yet don't feel we can share conversation around. It doesn't feel like it's okay to feel angry when you're a parent. And yet, I know myself, I've experienced more frustration and anger with parenting than I ever really did previously in my life. And that's okay. It's about how that anger comes out and how it gets channeled and what we do with those emotions, not the fact that we have them or denying that we do. So I wanted to talk about anger. It's probably an emotion that a lot of people are sort of struggling with right now because it is also a behavior or a way that a lot of different emotions get shown. So things like fear and insecurity and the unknown often comes out in people as anger. And that is what a lot of us are dealing with. So in order to talk about that, we do have a couple of workshops through Senate Neighborhood Place that we run all the time. One of them is You Make Me So Mad, but we also talk about anger in Mom's Mental Health Toolkit and Nobody's Perfect and a lot of other parenting groups. So one of the concepts we talk about is the idea of anger mountain, and many of you have seen it before, but I think it's a good idea to kind of lay that groundwork before we talk about what we can do with our anger. So here on this piece of paper, I have drawn a mountain. So you can talk about this in different ways, and this is not new stuff. This is not mine, but I like to talk about it as an iceberg. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw an ocean. It's kind of a rocky ocean. And so this is our anger. So the mountain represents us and the way we're feeling with our anger. So down here, we're not very angry at all. We're pretty chill. This is kind of normal. We're still kind of cool. And then this is where we really start seeing anger in people. And then this is the peak. This is what we would call explosive anger. This goes down here to where we're chilling out and then sort of continuing to come down. So the reason I like to talk about it as an iceberg is that all of us have stuff under here. So this is the behavior that we see with anger. So this is when you start kind of getting sweaty hands and feeling the heat in your face or your blood boiling, as you would say. And this is where you start saying things that you wouldn't really want to say if you were feeling chill. This is where we start acting pretty irrational with anger. But this is still a climb down here. And this is stuff that we carry, like I was saying before, things like fear and uncertainty and lack of safety. This is where we carry financial burden and experiences of other people's anger in our past. This is where we carry resentment and all of those feelings that lead us to dysregulate. So people who have had a lot of trauma in their past, who have had a lot of bad experiences, often have more of their iceberg underneath the water and they're closer to the surface here. So they have less of a climb. Whoops, Dr. Seuss. Less of a climb to their mountain, to their explosive anger. And we know that that is true. Some people just don't really get up here. They kind of roll with feelings of anger, or they don't necessarily hit that peak, where some of us are closer to that. And I think it builds over different periods of time. So if you're feeling like maybe you still have those past experiences, but right now you've got things kind of under control, your life's feeling pretty stable, you know, you have food and housing and those basic needs are being met, you might not be so close to the surface, but other times in your life, you might be very close to the surface. And what's happening right now with the COVID-19 situation and all of the fallout from that is that a lot of people are closer to the surface for anger. And when that's true for an entire population, and everybody's carrying their own iceberg around with them, we often don't think of our kids in the same light, and all of our children are also carrying their own icebergs around. So they are all having this, and they are a lot closer to the surface right now too, because for them, everything's changed. Their routine has changed. All of the grown-ups in their lives are more stressed. They're spending a lot more time at home. They're spending a lot more time on screens and indoors, and their parents might be very worried about basic needs or food or their jobs. They're hearing probably a little bit of grown-up conversation that they shouldn't really be hearing around what's going on in the world, even if we're being careful about the messages that we're delivering. And they are closer here. There's a lot more uncertainty and fear for them. I know that my kids aren't sleeping very well right now, which actually brings us closer to the surface as well when we're not getting enough sleep. Which also means that I'm not sleeping very well, which brings me closer to the surface as well. So what we see when people are like this is that we burst up here more often. We come up to our points of anger more frequently. It's a lot easier to fly off the handle. So if we have this idea that anger isn't just what we see, but it's actually everything underneath, we have a better understanding of how to deal with anger. And there's a lot here. This could be a very long video or series of videos, but right now I just want to acknowledge the fact that we're all feeling that way. And so maybe we need to be a little bit more gentle with ourselves and with other people right now, because we're all close to that surface and we're not always being as rational or logical or even keeled as we would be otherwise, including our kids. It might mean that we need to lower our expectations. And that is lowering your expectations of your kids. So kids often will backslide during these periods of uncertainty. They might show behaviors that they wouldn't normally show. They might be a little bit more difficult to manage. You might see them do things that you wouldn't have expected them to do. Sneak stuff, lie a little bit more. Maybe bedwetting has come back. Maybe toilet training has slipped. Maybe babies aren't sleeping as well. My kids are getting more nightmares, which is part of why they're not sleeping. They're afraid of things a lot more. So there's a lot more clinginess as well. And in adults, we just are not as calm and able to deal with those things. So being gentle and lowering those expectations of everybody is really important. The other thing is with anger, if we see these things coming, we are more able to not reach the peak. So if I am starting to feel angry and I can feel it building, and I know that when I get angry, I feel like my world's sort of zeroing in just on that, I can sense that I'm starting to be like, if you don't do the thing that I want you to do, then I will, unrealistic consequence. That often happens here. So I can see that coming. If I'm able to see it coming and know what anger feels like, then I'm often able to cut it off a little bit more. And sometimes that's actually physically being like, you know what, guys, I'm not feeling very calm right now, and I need to take a moment to calm down because I'm worried that I'm going to let my anger get control of me and say things that I don't want to say to you, or say things that aren't fair for me to say to you. So actually being honest with my kids when I'm feeling angry isn't letting them get away with whatever they're doing if they're doing something they shouldn't do, but it's also not taking the power and being ridiculously unrealistic with it, even though that can be the tendency with anger. So that is a big piece of it as well. Recognizing those signs of anger and being able to chop it off so that you're not going to the tip. You're not going to that explosive place. And then dealing with it when you come down. So if I get angry at my kids and maybe I raise my voice or maybe I set unrealistic expectations, I can still have a conversation around how I made a mistake or maybe didn't handle it in the best way without them necessarily not being parented. It's not me saying, oh, mommy got angry and so you don't need to do the things that I said that you needed to do. They still need to do the things. I still have expectations around the fact that they get dressed every day or brush their teeth or whatever. Be kind to each other. but they can see that I made a mistake. I can admit that I made a mistake, and we can still have conversation about it in a healthy way. So these are some of the tools as far as that goes. The other thing is there are resources available for mental health if you're feeling like you're really struggling. So reach out to your community centers, reach out to your outreach workers. There's lots of online resources. We have some on our website at Sandwich Neighborhood Place. You can just Google us and you can get some help if you're feeling like you're just really having a hard time regulating and dealing with being at home. And it's stressful, and that's okay. And it's okay to feel these feelings. And that's what I really want to drive home. So thank you so much for listening. Again, reach out if you need support, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.